When it comes to laughing in video games, there are probably a few notable ones that come to mind. Evil laughing usually takes the cake, of course, because it's a common trope we've encountered over our time spent playing games. A personal favorite of mine is actually the terrifying cackle of Cross Stitch from Glover. Just give it a listen for a second. When I first started my YouTube channel, prior to doing gaming mysteries, I actually wanted to make a top 10 evil laughs from gaming, but never got around to it. Consider this my redemption round. Because today, we're going to be talking about the most irritating, cursed laugh in all of gaming. And we're not talking about Titus from Final Fantasy X. That crap's just entry level. Seriously, no, today we're going to be covering hands down the longest running laugh to ever play gaming and beyond. It's essentially the Wilhelm scream of laughs, and once you hear it, it's never going to leave your mind. And then you'll notice it everywhere. Today, we're diving into the origins of the Diddy Laugh. Now, hearing that phrase may spark some memories for some of you, but a lot of you may not know it by that name. The reason it's called the Diddy Laugh is because most of us heard it for the first time when we booted up Diddy Kong Racing. When the game is loading, the Rare logo appears on the screen, and then we are forever cursed. Now the thing is, I've heard this laugh everywhere. And every time I do, it completely pulls me out of the immersion of the movie or game I am playing. Just recently I heard it again while watching a show called The Magicians, which I actually don't recommend watching. In my opinion, it's kind of subpar. But in one of the episodes, one of the main characters is walking through an area and this laugh is played. Instantly, I was like, that's from Diddy Kong Racing, while my significant other just stared at me blankly. But the thing is, up until this point in my life, I didn't realize other people had noticed this too. I tweeted about this on Twitter, and then to my surprise, I was informed that this laugh actually had a name, much like the Wilhelm scream. It's called the Diddy Laugh, due to it being most well known for Diddy Kong Racing's intro. But besides this encounter, I know I've heard it over and over again in tons of games I've played, from Baldur's Gate to Grand Theft Auto to Driver, Roller Coaster Tycoon, etc. And beyond that, I've heard it in many toy commercials when I was a child, in tons of movies, TV shows, etc. up until now. The most annoying giggle to ever grace my ears. But this is exactly what got me thinking too, because when I recall this laugh, I've always sourced it from Diddy Kong Racing. That's how people recall it. And I know from that point, for over the next 2 decades, it has been used hundreds of times. But what about in the opposite direction? The timeline probably doesn't start with Diddy Kong Racing. I highly doubted it was created for this logo intro and then magically appeared elsewhere. So that's when I set off on my quest. My quest to find when the Diddy Laugh was recorded and when its earliest rendition was used. So here's the thing, Diddy Kong Racing was released in November of 1997 for a lot of us, but for some of us, we might have very well recognized that sound from elsewhere right away. Windows 95 might come to mind for some of you, as the sound was apparently a part of the Utopia sound scheme for Windows shutting down within Microsoft Plus 95. It made an appearance in Windows 98 too, but that's really only the start. Because from this point, finding the actual source of the sound basically involves hopping from TV shows to movies and everything in between. And it got convoluted real fast for a couple different reasons I'll go into later. Turning back the clock to 1994, we have 4 weddings and a funeral, among other movies that utilize the Notorious Diddy Laugh in a scene. Even a KFC commercial popped it in at the end.
Me Amanda. Me Amanda. That's Furby. Furby grows more amazing. Day by day.
Prior to that, in 1993, we actually have a very weird inclusion of the sound. This one was actually sourced from a comment that mentioned that a really obscure song called Transhuman Baby sampled it. It was on Fantasia's Twice as Nice album. Give it a listen for yourself. It's even more creepy sped up. This song wouldn't be the only time the Diddy Laugh was used this year though, as a game called Freddy Farca's Frontier Pharmacist apparently utilized the laugh as well. Hidden within this gunslinging, tongue-in-cheek point-and-click adventure, the laugh strikes once again. But at this point I was beginning to wonder how far back it actually went. And that's when I began hearing claims that the 1973 movie The Exorcist held this laugh near the ending. And my mind was blown, because with a jump that big, I was fearful that the documentation and references prior to the days of public internet access would get in the way of tracing down the origins. However, after watching the ending of the movie twice again, I couldn't actually pinpoint the sound at all. The inclusion could have been subtle, but I marked it off as an outlier because despite seeing this claim twice, I couldn't find it. Perhaps someone thought it was a different laugh that was used in the movie. I'm not sure, but it was actually this decision to write off the claim with The Exorcist, which actually led to me finding out when the sound came out. Because somehow I jumped back from The Exorcist to 1993's Free Willy, and that's when I started to get a little more clarity. To us, the listeners, we simply called the laugh the Diddy Laugh because we didn't really know what it was besides laughing children. But while searching around movies from 1993, I made the discovery that changed everything. The source of the Diddy Laugh. Obviously, the sound, due to how often it was repeated in media, was certainly a stock asset of some kind, and tracing back the sources of old assets gets very complex, because oftentimes editors have a huge dump of sounds without any real clarity. Files get shared around, and tracing them back to the roots becomes impossible. With various movies as sources though, and being able to cross-reference posts on the internet, I finally stumbled upon the actual name of the sound, which was actually way harder than you would think because you're pretty much searching for something you don't actually know how to search for. But with plenty of notes, I arrived at a source. You see, what we know as the Diddy Laugh is actually labeled as PE 143501. Two young kids giggle. According to online resources, it was part of a sound collection called the Premiere Edition Volume 1 by Hollywood Edge, which was a company that produced stock sounds during the time. This album in particular, which was one of the first of its kind from this company, came out on August 13th, 1990. And I'm sure I've even utilized assets from the sound pack unknowingly when I used to do short films and stuff prior to YouTube, since the sources of assets get lost over time. But that day, August 13th, 1990, was the day the Diddy Laugh was born, or at least released. I had finally found it. The source of the most wicked laugh to ever grace my ears. To say I was ecstatic was an understatement, as when I set my sights on something, I pretty much focus on it direly until I see it through. But even though I was celebrating this victory, I got greedy. I wanted to know more, which led me to the bigger problem. There are no actual records of when these sounds were recorded, only a release date for the sound pack for when it was officially for sale. I'd imagine they were done within a 2-year span prior to the actual release of the product, but it's impossible to tell. So I came to a standstill, and I mean it. So, that last sentence I just read, that was 6 months ago. Yes, 6 months have passed since I started writing this script, and it's been more than that since I started looking into all of this. Obviously, I was excited to track down the true origin of the sound. But to me, I wanted to know when that cursed audio came into our world. A sound that's supposed to represent joy, but has irked me almost my entire life. So I started doing some digging to find out who actually produced this set of sounds, and I came across two names. Lon Bender and Wiley Stateman. Two people who have both won Academy Awards in their life for their contributions to audio in regards to film and TV. It took a while to actually locate these names given how dated all the images online were. This is when I realized that Wiley was still running an audio-focused business. So I took a shot in the dark and reached out to him hoping to get a response. And surprisingly, I did receive one from his wife. I reached out to Lon too, but I never heard anything back, unfortunately. Wiley's wife, Lisa, said she would check with Wiley and the old crew and get back to me. At this point, I thought I'd finally cracked the case. Would I find out the birthplace of this cursed laugh? Nope. Unfortunately, it was another dead end. No one could specifically recall when it was recorded. Furthermore, anyone on staff could have been the one to record the sound. I was told to reach out to another studio, but the rabbit hole just kept getting deeper and deeper. And eventually, I had to throw in the towel. PE 143501. A code that triggers nostalgic racing memories with my brothers, but also a repeating sound that pulls me out of any movie or game I'm currently experiencing. The source of the Diddy Laugh. But at this point, in desperation, I turn to you, the internet. Fellow nerds, I need you to lend me your power. Not for a spirit bomb or anything. Think of it more like Scooby-Doo needs some new recruits for Mystery Inc. Like a few more million members because there's a million rooms that need searching. If you know anyone or anything about the source of the Diddy Laugh, please share in the comments below. If I can't crack this case myself, perhaps the hive mind of the internet can. And with that, thanks for tuning in for this historic hunt. Please excuse me while I try to forget what this laugh sounds like again. Anyways, thanks for watching guys and gals, and until my next video, Cheers.